back then, it seemed like you were in a good place. Ethan confronted his parents, and the last thing we hear from you two is, we have each other. So what happened since then between you?
I honestly don't know that I can do this.
Hey guys, it's Katie from Without a Crystal Ball. Welcome back to my channel. It is Wednesday, August 18th. I have some tea for you because last night, Welcome to Plathville was back. And this is season 3. Now, we have been covering this show since the beginning. Like, that was one of the first shows I started covering regularly on this channel. So we are a full-on Welcome to Plathville channel, sort of, kind of. It's one of the many shows that we cover. But last night was season 3's premiere. Now, this family looks very different than the family that we met 3 years ago. When we first met them, they lived on a farm. They acted like they never saw any people in the outside world. The kids played out on the farm. They had an idyllic childhood where they went swimming and played with, cows and built forts in the woods, and they were remote from everything and everyone. Now, cut to 2 seasons later on season 3, the family has moved into the city. They moved in last season. They are no longer on the farm, and the idyllic life of playing on the farm and playing outside and no outside influences, those days are long gone, because the Plaths we see now are not the Plaths we met, and it's just become a more and more fractured show. Instead of going through the entire recap of this episode, I just want to touch on a couple points from this episode that I thought were the most disturbing. So generally, when I walk into a show and I'm like, y'all, I try to find something that makes me happy, where I'm just like, oh, this is so great. And my takeaway from last night's episode was complete and utter just disgust, horror, sadness, frustration. I wasn't feeling anything. Like, even in moments where I was supposed to feel like uplifted and happy for, say, like Mariah and her boyfriend Max, or the fact that, Micah is doing all of these things, the overlying drama and the frustration and the divide in the family is so dark and permeating the entire show that it makes it hard to be happy about anything, period. In last night's episode, probably the most shocking thing was Ethan. Like, I didn't even recognize Ethan. A year ago, we saw Ethan struggling with choices about his family. We saw Ethan's wife, Olivia, and his parents clashing in the first season, and Olivia basically telling Ethan that in order for them to have a healthy marriage, they would have to cut off Barry and Kim. Barry and Kim said, if you cut us off, you don't get to see the kids. And so for them to have a healthy boundary with Barry and Kim, Ethan had to give up all of his siblings to be with his wife. That specific choice has Ethan so depressed, so down, so angry that he doesn't look like the silly, bubbly guy that we met in the first season. I mean, remember the guy that we were like, he got to try a Coca-Cola for the first time and trying alcohol and doing all of these firsts was like the fun aspect of the show? Long gone is that quirky, happy boy that was so eagerly excited about the world to try the firsts. And now it's a brooding, angry, depressed young man. And it made me feel really, really sad. When we see the show open, it's like you see the very end of how it ended last season with that big altercation between the Plaths and Ethan, and how he almost got into a fist fight with Barry. And then you have that goes on, and then at the end you have Ethan and Olivia like in the car saying, we still have each other, everything will be fine. 6 months later, they're sitting down with TLC producers, and Ethan can barely even look at Olivia. Olivia looks like she's about to cry, and Ethan says that he can't do this anymore.
I honestly don't know that I can do this.
He doesn't want to talk. His body posture is like angry. He looks like he has steam coming out of his ears. This does not look like a man that's happy or able to process what's going on in his. Olivia, for her part, she talks about how we see her in her first scene. And by the way, Olivia's not on this episode very much at all. It's mostly Ethan or the rest of the Plaths. So when we actually see Olivia, she's in the car and she admits that she's been gone for a week, traveling for work because she's a photographer. And during her travels, she's not talked to Ethan. She also says that she sent him a text message the night before and he left it unseen. He didn't respond to her. And so because of that, she hadn't seen him or talked to him in a week.
Did you go to your therapy appointment last night?
Yeah.
How was your therapy appointment?
It sucked. I talked to a stranger that I didn't know about all my problems.
It's kind of helpful though, yeah?
So imagine you're on a trip for work and you are not even checking in with your spouse, or you and your spouse have no communication. Like, there's some serious issues going on here. When she walks in the door, we're supposed to believe that she's walking in and hasn't seen him in a week. And he walks in and she's got her bags, and he, again, looks very angry and cold. And she just like walks right past him and there's no greeting. And then he's like, can I have a hug? And it's almost like this kind of awkward hug where there's no kiss. It's just a hug. And he looks more like he's embracing her versus she's embracing him. And then she wants to know if he went to therapy. He claims he went to therapy the night before, talked to a stranger who he didn't know and told him about things and said that he didn't really get anything out of it.
So Olivia's really wanted me to go to a personal therapist. I did give that a try, but it didn't do anything for me.
You gonna go back?
Maybe.
And he didn't know if he was going to go back. Olivia said in order for their marriage to work, they were going to have to continue with therapy. You then see him in a breakout on his own in an interview, basically saying that he is so angry at his mom for making him have to make that choice. Like, she was so stubborn that in order for him to have a relationship with his siblings, he would have to have one with her. Like, she wouldn't allow him to see his siblings without seeing her. And he didn't think that that was a fair decision by Kim, because he says, if I have to have a relationship with her, that means it goes back to how it was before, and I have to do what my parents want, and I don't want that. And so he's resentful. But even though he doesn't say it, it also seems like maybe some of that frustration is also directed at Olivia.
Something that I think about quite often is the relationship that I gave up with my siblings for my marriage. And honestly, it pisses me off. I kind of feel that my mom used my younger siblings as leverage to get me to do what she wanted me to do.
Because he's cold and off-putting. Now, Olivia thinks that he's having a hard time processing the magnitude of that choice, of what it means to actually like let go of your family. And so he's like angry at his mom, but he's also sort of in a way taking it out on Olivia. So Olivia's solution is that they are going to move to Tallahassee.
I've tried to have every conversation possible from every angle possible. I've tried to fix this and make this work because I want a progressing, growing relationship. But at the end of the day, I think the biggest thing for the sake of our marriage thriving is that we really need to be out of Cairo.
Remember last year, they were going to sell their house and move to a different town to get out of Cairo, because Olivia thinks that if they move out of the town that they're in, they're away from his parents and have more distance between them, that they will actually be able to be more independent and move on with their lives. But Ethan seems to be struggling with that decision. So there's boxes packed everywhere. It looks like they're moving, but it doesn't seem like they have a plan, because she wants to go to Tallahassee and rent, and Ethan doesn't want to move to Tallahassee. And they admit that they have different goals right now. Ethan wants to stay in the country. He wants to stay in a more rural setting. He doesn't want to go to Tallahassee. She wants to go to Tallahassee. She wants to move on with her life. She wants to get away from all of this drama. Naturally, there's a divide here by fans because some people feel like shame on Barry and Kim for doing this to Ethan, and then other people are like, shame on Olivia for isolating him from his family by forcing him to pick between his family and her. And I'll just say this, it's a really impossible situation because Ethan feels like he grew up in an environment that was unhealthy. He feels like his mom is very controlling. He feels like she's nasty. He feels like she's abusive. And so for him, he doesn't want to be around that. And then he also feels like she puts that onto his wife and isn't nice to his wife. And same with his dad. So for him, he's trying to make a healthy decision for his wife because that's the person he's picked to make his life with. But at the same time, your family is your family. And so you can't just cut people out. It doesn't make things get easier. And my biggest sense out of all of this, and this was my biggest takeaway, is that Kim and Barry Plath seem to have done their children a massive disservice. So whether you think that Olivia is trying to isolate him from the world, which some of you do, and some of you left comments like that on my Instagram, my opinion is that even if you don't like Olivia, and even if you think that she's as controlling as Kim, the fact of the matter is that Kim and Barry Plath have seemingly raised children that are emotionally stunted, incapable of dealing and processing their emotions, unable to have resources and understand how to manage their feelings because they didn't talk about things growing up. They didn't have resources. They didn't go to school. They didn't have, they were so isolated in their little family that they didn't deal with bigger issues, and the issues were just pray about it, forget about it, don't talk about it, do what I want, say what I do what I want, follow the rules, that's it. So if you're never taught how to feel and you're never taught how to have constructive tools to manage your feelings and having outlets, and all you want to do is run away from problems, you'll never actually solve the issue. For Olivia's part, she's young, she's coming from her own background of trauma and abuse, and so for her, running away makes sense. Ethan wants to run away, but running away never solves the problem, ever. They have to take on these feelings, and they either have to come to an agreement that we're not gonna do this or we are gonna do this, and if we're not gonna do this, we have to do this in a way where it's healthy for everyone. But it seems like for Ethan, the struggle is real. Their marriage is very, very fractured. And I said this last season, I don't know if they're going to make it. And I don't want to say that in that I don't think that they're not two lovely people. I think these two have way too much in front of them. I think Ethan's family issues and his inability to process and deal with his emotions puts a very heavy burden on Olivia, who is more willing to talk and deal with her problems, right? That stress alone on a wife is a lot. Then you have a family that's trying to divide and put you apart because it's clear that Kim and Olivia don't like each other. That's not going to get better unless one of them bends and neither one of them want to bend. So for Ethan to be able to actually do something about that, he has to make tough decisions. And if he can't have tools to get through that and take necessary steps to actually accomplish that and to get through that and get over that, he's not going to be happy. And I want them to make it, but I also realize that there's a lot of barriers here that are going to make it impossible. And Kim all but admitted in last night's episode that she would prefer to arrange her children's marriages, which again has made me think, was Olivia and Ethan's a setup by their families? How much did they really know each other before they got married? Is this another situation where two young fundamentalist kids get married, don't know much about each other, and now they have massive personality conflicts, and you have two kids that have completely different approaches for what they want in life? Olivia wants a city life, he wants a country life. Olivia doesn't mind the limelight, which is fine. She's beautiful, she's a photographer. He seems more simple. Their personalities are just so starkly different. You have one that will communicate and one that doesn't. And I blame Kim and Barry for Ethan's inability to communicate. So I want to know what your thoughts are. Do you blame Kim for the situation or do you blame Olivia? I can't blame Olivia here. I don't love that she has created a situation where he feels like he has to choose. But I feel like Olivia had to do what she had to do for her own mental health. But I also feel like the two of them could benefit from serious counseling, both of them independently and together as a couple. Tell me what your thoughts are in the comments below. Bye, guys.